most respected audience, friends, comrades, well wishers, and students of history. A very good day to you all. On 27 2025, that is a Sunday, in the Hindu magazine, the paper attached along with the main paper Hindu, we have a magazine in which one article appeared that has been authored by Devdutt Pattanaik. I have a huge appreciation for Devdutt Pattanaik because he handles mythology in his own style. Myth and Reality is a very famous book of D.D. Kosambi which has inspired several history students, and one among them is myself. As such, as a continuity of D.D. Kosambi, Devdutt Pattanaik is trying to put forth his own interpretations to Indian mythology, and he tries to give fresh insights into the Indian myths. As such, in the magazine, he has formed a hypothesis stating that we all know that Vedism was viewed critically by a section of people, and that critical view caused the birth of heterodox sects like Buddhism. But nobody knows that Buddhism has also been viewed in a different light, and a reaction has been made for Buddhism in the form of Shaivism. That is what Devdutt Pattanaik is trying to put forth before us. Every one of us know that Vedism was marked by sacrifice, exclusion of a segment of people, and use of the so-called elite language for rituals. However, Devdutt Pattanaik, he states that the underlying current of Vedic ritualism is material success, whereas Buddhism, on the other hand, was trying to liberate people from the obsession of materials or holding of materials. Like a typical Marxist, he is attempting to view things in an economic deterministic perspective, and therefore he carefully chooses materials as the undercurrent of the entire dialectic between religions. So, according to Devdutt Pattanaik, material desires are leading towards sufferings and frustration. Making an abstract of the Eightfold Path, Devdutt Pattanaik advocates that Buddha is for a monastic path. Buddha was a householder and he married, he got children, and finally he realized that these are all not important in worldly life, and this worldly attachment will only cause sorrow, and therefore he gave up all mundane desires and preferred a monastic life. In contrast to this is the icon of Shiva. Although Devdutt Pattanaik views Shiva after Buddhism, Shiva has its origin, the icon of Shiva has its origin from the Indus Valley civilization. We have the Pashupati Mahadeva who is in a stage of meditation, and it is widely believed that the Rudra of the Vedic age, that is the Rig Vedic age, is an adaptation of the Pashupati Mahadeva. There also Rudra is identified as a person who is detached from the rest of the people. Nevertheless, Devdutt Pattanaik argues that Shiva's first wife is Sati, who is a daughter of a Brahmin priest. Indirectly, he is trying to point that Buddha belongs to the Kshatriya and Shiva is related to Brahmins. Since Buddhism made Kshatriyas as popular people and the Varna system of the Buddhas made Kshatriyas first and Brahmanas next, the evolution of Shiva took twists and turns according to Devdutt Pattanaik, and Shiva is now married to Parvati, who is the daughter of the king of mountains or Kshatriya. Shaivism considers Shiva as the primeval matter and he is constantly engaged in meditation. And from meditation, he is adopting family life and he is marrying Sati and Parvati in different stories. But notable is the importance attached to family life, women, and marriage. One important point that has not been handled by Devdutt Pattanaik is about the children. Rahula was the son of Buddha, and Buddha left Rahula in the palace, and Rahula will naturally become the king. And Rahula was born out of sexual union of Buddha with his wife. But Shiva, though Shaivism advocated family life, the children of Shiva and Parvati are Kartikeya and Ganesha. So Ganesha was born purely from Parvati's body, and Kartikeya or Murugan is born purely from Shiva's body, and there was no sexual union between both the deities. Why, in his assessment of myths, Devdutt Pattanaik missed this point is not clear. Rather, he identifies Buddha's approach as one of inwardly looking. Maybe he is trying to give more attention to the purity of thoughts and mind. Rather, he states that Shaivism is more socially engaged. He further argues that the shilaut of a stupa is resembling the Shivalinga, and it is not a coincidence, but the meanings of both stupa and Shivalinga are different. One important difference is that Buddha is rising against 33 very gods to a new paradise far above all of them. We should remember that Buddha lived like a man, although his birth was symbolically understood as a great event. He lived just like all of us. But owing to his enlightenment, Buddhism and people who followed his ideals, they raised him above all gods. That is what Devdutt Pattanaik is trying to make clear. He states that the bump on his head was interpreted as a kind of spiritual fire rising upwards. So he attributes this bump as fire, which is not different from the Vedic fire, which was the mouth of gods, and every sacrifice made through fire is taken to the appropriate god. And similarly, his head is symbolic of the fire and rising towards the heaven. In contrast, what he argues is the Shivalinga is constantly poured with water which descends towards the earth. So, when Buddha is trying to go beyond the gods, the water is trying to reach the people and help them. In his writing, Devdutt Pattanaik tries to handle the concept of death also, while saying that he points to the fact that Buddha was afraid of death. But Shiva is not only the primeval matter, he has made a divine division of labor and he is the god, the destroyer, whereas Brahma is the god, the creator, and Vishnu is the god, the protector. The greatest reality of the world, the death, made Buddha to turn his head against the society or away from the society. Rather, Shaivism had a very different perspective. It taught life. The greatest of sages like sage Agastya himself married Lopamudra and they caused succession in family. Through marriage and succession, death has been won according to Shaivism, as per the interpretation of Devdutt Pattanaik. In contrast to monastic life, a service to the Devas and Asuras gave yearnings in life and through which Agastya established his household. Buddha is said to have been reluctant to teach his ideas to common people, and therefore Indra and Brahma, the king of heavens and God the creator, they instigated Buddha to teach his ideas. Maybe in the world of gods and the elitist society of that times, this hermit life of Buddha is most necessitated, and therefore Indra and Brahma instigated him to teach all his thinking to such people. Rather, Shiva was instigated to teach his ideas by his wife. Herein, our Devdutt Pattanaik is pointing to the iconography of both Buddha and Shiva. The sitting posture is almost same, whereas Shiva carries a staff in his hand, and in northern India his iconography is celebrated as Lakulisa, whereas in South India it is Dakshinamurti. The more tantric type of image of Lakulisa in the south is converted more by Bhakti. Conversation between Parvati and Shiva is not just about wisdom, rather it is about the inclusion of women according to Devdutt Pattanaik. Women are viewed as Shakti, that is power, in Shaivism, rather in Buddhism they are accommodated only as nuns. They were authors of the great Theragatha poems, but still they were identified or recognized only as nuns. These are again two extremes of treating women, and women as wives and mothers and sisters can contribute immensely for the sustenance of society, and Buddhism treated them only as nuns and poets. Far ahead of modern feminists, Buddhism 2000 years before had provided space for women as finding solace outside the household life, free from strictly engendered roles. Although Buddhism has given a space for women, the head of the monasteries are always male. So, this has, however, subdued the importance of women according to Devdutt Pattanaik, and he states that Shaivism reacted in such a way that Parvati is being given a primary role in the evolution of the ideas of Shiva. A teacher is absent when there is no student. So, as a student, she instigates Shiva and brings forth his knowledge, and she feeds her, she encourages her, and without her, Shiva or the male is not full. Significantly, Buddhism points to two types of women, nuns and women in the household. But Shaivism has three kinds of women: goddesses, household women, and those who renounced their life. Household women are not recognized both within Buddhism and Shaivism. So, this unrecognizing tendency of household women is a continuity from the past within Shaivism also. Devdutt Pattanaik points to the icon of Tripura Sundari and states that this is also an exemption from the established pattern. For she is seated in a throne that is carried by male gods, and she carries symbols of karma. Hence, Devdutt Pattanaik is trying to put forth Shaivism as having large many aspects as a reaction to the Buddhist trends that mark the earlier life. However, if Shaivism is laying stress on household life, why people like Shankaracharya, who came later, became strictly a non householder saint? When there was a need to counter a woman in his spiritual debates, he passed his life into another body, that is the body of a king, and he experienced the sexual life, and therefore the purity of his body is retained, whereas his mind is being exposed to something which is usually not permitted. It is a kind of self restraint principle of Shankaracharya. Rather, if we are to take Devdutt Pattanaik's views, a householder life or a sexual union is not a hindrance in spiritual achievement in Shaivism. But in this article, Devdutt Pattanaik should not have stopped with just images like Lakurisa and Tripura Sundari. Rather, he must have extended his opinion about Shankaracharya and the debates based on that also. That would have created a holistic understanding of the spiritual, mythical views that Devdutt Pattanaik is trying to project. However, Shaivism as a reaction to Buddhist trends is a new perspective, and I have never come across such perspective so far. It is an innovative thinking, and we have to recognize the ideas of Devdutt Pattanaik, although there are certain limitations in his opinion. This has opened a new page in the field of research, and recently I came across another article wherein it is stated that there are about 45,000 religions in the world, and how one religion is counterfacing another religion or reacting to the trends of one religion is a major area for research. So, Devdutt Pattanaik has opened our eyes towards such research fields. So, with this, I thank Devdutt Pattanaik for his work, and I congratulate him, and I also thank all of you who have listened to this lecture. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.